single mother thrown out in the rain meets a billionaire. Life will never be the same. The rain fell like the sky itself had given up. It poured endlessly, violently, as if it knew what had just happened inside the house behind her. The thunder cracked above, loud and unforgiving, but it was nothing compared to the storm raging in Amara's chest. "Get out!" his voice had roared just moments ago. 8 years. 8 years of marriage reduced to a single sentence. Now she stood at the gate, barefoot, soaked to the skin, clutching a torn garbage bag that held what little she could grab. Her 5-year-old daughter, Lila, clung tightly to her dress, trembling, not just from the cold, but from fear. "Mummy, where are we going?" Lila whispered, her tiny voice almost lost in the rain. Amara swallowed hard. She didn't know. That was the truth she couldn't say out loud. She looked back at the house, the same house she had cleaned, cooked in, cried in, and tried so desperately to call home. Through the window, she saw him, laughing, smiling, with her, the mistress. A woman who now stood where Amara once stood. A woman who had stolen not just her husband, but the illusion that her suffering meant something. Amara's chest tightened painfully. She remembered every slap she had hidden, every insult she had swallowed, every night she had cried silently so her daughter wouldn't hear. She stayed because she believed things would change, because she believed love required endurance, because she had nowhere else to go. Until tonight. The gate slammed shut behind her with a finality that echoed in her bones. She was no longer a wife, just a burden that had been discarded. The rain soaked through her thin clothes, chilling her to the core. Lila shivered violently, and Amara quickly knelt, wrapping her arms around her daughter, trying to shield her from the storm. "I'm here," she whispered, forcing strength into her voice. "I'm here, baby." But inside, she was breaking. Where would they sleep? What would they eat? How do you start over when you have nothing, not even dignity left? Cars sped past on the road, splashing water onto the muddy ground near her feet. None slowed down. None noticed. Or maybe they did, and chose not to care. Amara lowered her head, her tears mixing with the rain. For a moment, she considered going back, knocking on the door, begging, just for her daughter. But then she heard it again, the laughter from inside the house. That laughter snapped something in her. No, she would not go back, even if it meant sleeping on the street, even if it meant facing the world alone. She tightened her grip on Lila and stood up slowly, her legs shaking but her resolve hardening. And that was when it happened. A pair of bright headlights cut through the darkness. A sleek black car slowed down, then stopped. The engine hummed softly as the window rolled down. Amara froze. Moments like this could change everything, for better or worse. A deep voice called out through the rain. "Excuse me, are you all right?" Amara hesitated, because sometimes help comes when you need it most. And sometimes, it comes with a price. Amara didn't answer immediately. The rain pounded harder, as though urging her to decide quickly. Her fingers tightened around Lila, instinctively protective. She had learned the hard way that not every outstretched hand meant safety. "I asked if you're all right," the man repeated, his tone calm but firm. The car door opened. Even in the darkness and rain, Amara could tell it was no ordinary car. Sleek, silent, expensive. The kind of car people like her only saw in movies. The man who stepped out held an umbrella, moving with a quiet confidence that made her more nervous than reassured. "I'm fine," she said quickly, her voice hoarse. "We're fine." It was a lie so fragile it almost broke midair. The man stopped a few steps away, careful not to invade her space. He looked at her, then at Lila, his expression shifting, not pity, but something deeper, something unsettled. "No," he said softly. "You're not." Amara stiffened. "I don't need help," she added, more sharply this time. But Lila betrayed her. "Mommy, I'm cold," the little girl whispered, her teeth chattering. The man's jaw tightened slightly. Without a word, he removed his coat and crouched down, keeping a respectful distance as he gently draped it over Lila's shoulders. Amara almost pulled her back. Almost. But the warmth made Lila sigh softly, clinging to the coat. "Thank you," Amara said reluctantly, her voice barely audible. The man nodded once. "What happened?" he asked. Amara looked away. How do you explain 8 years of pain in one sentence? "I just need somewhere to go," she said. "We'll figure it out." The man studied her carefully. Something about her face, her eyes. There was a flicker of recognition, but it passed too quickly to grasp. "You won't survive the night out here," he said plainly. "Not with a child." "I've survived worse," Amara replied. There was a long silence, broken only by the relentless rain. Then he spoke again. "My name is Daniel." She hesitated before answering. "Amara." The name seemed to hit him. His brows drew together slightly, as if pulling at a memory buried deep in his mind. But again, he said nothing about it. Instead, he gestured toward the car. "Get in," Daniel said. "I'll take you somewhere safe. No obligations, no conditions." Amara's heart pounded. This was the moment. Trust him or walk away into the unknown. "Why?" she asked suddenly. "Why would you help us?" Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked directly at her, his voice quieter now. "Because I think this isn't the first time the world has been unfair to you," he said. "And I'm in a position to change that, at least for tonight." Amara searched his face. No arrogance, no hidden smile, just sincerity, and something else she couldn't quite understand. Lila tugged at her dress weakly. "Mummy, please." That broke her. Slowly, cautiously, Amara nodded. Daniel opened the back door, shielding them from the rain as they climbed inside. The warmth hit instantly, wrapping around them like a forgotten comfort. As the car door shut, Amara exhaled a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. The car began to move. She didn't know where they were going. She didn't know who Daniel really was. But as she glanced at him through the rearview mirror, she noticed something unsettling. He was still looking at her. Not with curiosity, but with recognition. As if meeting her wasn't an accident. The car ride was silent, but not peaceful. Amara sat stiffly in the back seat, her damp fingers gripping the edge of the leather upholstery as though she might fall if she let go. Lila had curled up beside her, already drifting into an exhausted sleep, wrapped in Daniel's coat. Streetlights flickered past, casting brief flashes of light across the car's interior. Each flicker revealed Daniel's face in the rearview mirror. Calm, composed, but watchful. It made her uneasy. "Where are we going?" Amara finally asked, her voice cautious. "Somewhere safe," Daniel replied simply. That word again. Safe. It sounded foreign to her. After nearly 30 minutes, the car slowed, then turned through tall iron gates that opened automatically. Amara's eyes widened slightly as they drove up a long, curved driveway lined with perfectly trimmed hedges and soft golden lights. The mansion ahead was overwhelming. It stood tall and elegant, glowing warmly against the dark sky, like something out of a dream she had long stopped believing in. Amara hesitated as the car came to a stop. "I can't stay here," she said quickly. "This is too much." Daniel turned in his seat slightly. It's just a house, he said. No, she replied, shaking her head. It's not a place for someone like me. For a brief moment, something crossed Daniel's face, something almost like frustration. There is no someone like you, he said firmly. You needed help. That's all that matters. Amara didn't respond. She wasn't used to being spoken to like that, not with respect. The door opened and a house staff member approached with an umbrella. Daniel stepped out first, then waited patiently as Amara carefully carried Lila out of the car. Inside, warmth embraced them instantly. Soft lights, polished floors, and the faint scent of something comforting, vanilla maybe, filled the air. Amara felt out of place immediately, painfully aware of her soaked clothes and bare feet against the smooth marble floor. I'll have a room prepared, Daniel said to one of the staff, and get something warm for the child. The staff nodded and disappeared quickly. Amara shifted uncomfortably. You don't have to do all this, she said. I know, Daniel replied. That answer unsettled her even more. Moments later, a woman approached with towels and a gentle smile, guiding Amara upstairs. The room they entered was larger than anything Amara had ever lived in. She carefully laid Lila on the bed, her daughter barely stirring as the warmth wrapped around her. For the first time that night, Amara allowed herself to breathe. But the feeling didn't last, because when she turned around, Daniel was standing at the doorway, watching her. Have we met before? He asked suddenly. The question hit her like a stone. Amara frowned. No, but something in her chest tightened. Daniel stepped closer, his gaze searching her face. You're sure? He pressed. Yes, she said, more firmly now. A long silence followed. Then Daniel nodded slowly, though he didn't look convinced. Get some rest, he said quietly. We'll talk in the morning. He turned to leave, then paused. Amara, he added. She looked up. There are some things, he said carefully, that don't stay buried forever. A chill ran down her spine. After he left, Amara sat on the edge of the bed, staring into nothing. His words echoed in her mind. Things don't stay buried. She didn't know why, but suddenly she felt afraid. Not of him, but of something far worse. The past she thought she had survived might not be finished with her yet. Amara didn't sleep. She lay beside Lila, staring at the ceiling as the events of the night replayed endlessly in her mind. Every word Daniel had said echoed louder in the silence. There are some things that don't stay buried forever. What did he mean? By morning, exhaustion weighed heavily on her, but her mind refused to rest. She quietly slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Lila, and stepped into the hallway. The house was already awake. Soft footsteps of staff echoed faintly, along with the distant clinking of dishes. Everything felt controlled, ordered, a world completely different from the chaos she had left behind. Good morning. Amara turned sharply. Daniel stood a few feet away, dressed neatly, as though the storm last night had never touched him. Morning, she replied cautiously. There's breakfast downstairs, he said. You should eat. I'm not hungry. That wasn't a question, he said gently but firmly. Something about his tone made her follow him. They sat across from each other at a long dining table. Amara barely touched the food, her fingers restless against the table. Daniel watched her for a moment before speaking. I did some checking, he said. Her heart skipped. Checking? She repeated. Your name, he clarified. Amara. A wave of unease washed over her. That's not necessary, she said quickly. It is, he replied, because I don't believe in coincidences. Amara's chest tightened. What are you talking about? Instead of answering, Daniel reached into his pocket and placed something on the table. A photograph. Amara hesitated before picking it up. The moment she saw it, her breath caught. It was old, slightly worn, but unmistakable. A younger version of herself, holding a baby. Her hands began to tremble. "That's impossible," she whispered. Daniel leaned forward slightly, his eyes locked onto hers. "Is it?" he asked quietly. Amara shook her head, panic rising. "That picture. I lost everything from that time. Everything," she said, her voice breaking. "That doesn't make sense." "Then explain this," Daniel said. His tone had changed, not harsh, but urgent. Amara looked at him, her heart racing uncontrollably. "I don't understand what you want from me," she said. "I've already lost everything. I have nothing left to hide." Daniel studied her face carefully, searching for something. Truth, perhaps. Then he spoke words that shattered her world. "The man you were married to," he said slowly, "has been using your identity." Silence. Cold, heavy silence. Amara blinked, confused. "What does that mean?" Daniel didn't look away. "It means," he continued, "the wealth he claimed, the life he built, none of it was ever his." Amara's stomach dropped. "No," she said immediately. "That's not true." "It is," Daniel said. "And worse, it all traces back to you." Her head spun. "That's impossible," she whispered again. But deep down, something felt wrong. Fragments of memories surfaced, documents she was never allowed to see, decisions she was never included in, accounts she was told not to question. Her husband's constant control, his secrecy, his anger whenever she asked questions. Daniel's voice cut through her thoughts. "I think," he said carefully, "you've been living in a lie for years." Amara's grip tightened on the photograph. Her entire marriage suddenly felt like a carefully constructed illusion. And if what Daniel was saying was true, then the man who threw her out into the rain had stolen far more than her dignity. He had stolen her life. And now, the truth was coming for him. The truth didn't explode all at once. It unfolded slowly. Then, all at once. Within days, everything began to unravel. Daniel moved quickly, quietly pulling strings Amara didn't even know existed. Lawyers, investigators, financial analysts, people who spoke in numbers and facts, not emotions. And what they uncovered was devastating. Amara sat in Daniel's study as documents were laid out before her, each one slicing deeper into the illusion she had lived in for 8 years. Her name, her signature, her identity, used everywhere. Bank accounts she had never seen, properties she never knew existed, contracts signed under her name, but never by her hand. "I don't understand," she whispered, shaking her head. "How is this even possible?" Daniel's expression was grim. "He built everything on you," he said. "Every business, every asset, it's all registered under your identity." Amara's breath caught. "So, it's mine?" she asked, her voice trembling. Daniel didn't answer immediately. "Yes," he said finally. "Legally, it is." The room fell silent. For years she had believed she was nothing, a burden, a woman with no power, no voice, no worth. But now, everything her husband had belonged to her. A bitter laugh escaped her lips, quickly turning into tears. "All this time," she said, her voice breaking, "I was suffering in my own life." Daniel didn't interrupt, because there was nothing he could say to ease that kind of pain. Meanwhile, across the city, the man who once stood so confidently in control was losing everything. At first, he didn't believe it. When the banks froze his accounts, he thought it was a mistake. When legal notices arrived, he dismissed them. When business partners began to pull away, he grew angry. Then came the truth. Everything was under Amara's name. And now, Amara was no longer under his control. Panic set in. His calls went unanswered. His access was denied. The life he had carefully built began collapsing like a house of cards. And the woman he had chosen over his wife? She didn't stay long enough to watch it fall. The mistress who once laughed beside him now packed her things quietly, her face cold and distant. "You said you had everything," she snapped. "I do," he insisted desperately. "This is just temporary." But she only shook her head. "I didn't sign up for this," she said. And just like that, she walked away. The same way he had thrown Amara out. Alone now, reality finally hit him. For the first time, he felt it. Fear, regret, loss. Days later, news spread quickly. Whispers turning into headlines, headlines turning into public disgrace. His name, once respected, became a cautionary tale. Fraud, deception, manipulation. Everything he had hidden was now exposed. Back at the mansion, Amara stood by the window, holding Lila close as she watched the rain fall once again. But this time, it felt different. She wasn't standing outside in it anymore. She was watching from a place of safety. Still, her heart felt heavy. Because justice didn't erase pain, and knowing the truth didn't undo the years she had lost. Behind her, Daniel spoke softly. "It's over for him." Amara didn't turn. "No," she said quietly. Her voice was calm now, stronger. "It's just beginning." The days that followed felt unfamiliar. Not because they were chaotic, but because they were peaceful. For the first time in years, Amara woke up without fear tightening her chest. No shouting, no tension, no walking on invisible eggshells. Just silence, and the soft, steady breathing of her daughter beside her. It felt unreal. At first, she didn't trust it. She moved through Daniel's home carefully, almost apologetically, as if expecting someone to remind her she didn't belong there. But no one did. The staff treated her with quiet respect, and Daniel, he kept his distance, offering help without intrusion. It confused her. One morning, as she sat watching Lila laugh in the garden, a sound she hadn't heard freely in so long, Daniel joined her. "You're different today," he said. Amara glanced at him. "Different how?" "Lighter," he replied. She considered that. Maybe he was right. "I think," she said slowly, "I'm starting to feel like I can breathe again." Daniel nodded, as if he understood more than she had said. But peace didn't mean forgetting. The truth about her past still lingered, heavy and complicated. The legal process had begun, transferring full control of everything back to her, correcting years of manipulation. It was overwhelming. "I don't even know what to do with all of it," she admitted one afternoon, sitting across from Daniel in his study. "The houses, the accounts, it doesn't feel like mine." "That's because you were never allowed to own it," Daniel said. "Not in your mind." Amara lowered her gaze. "All those years, I believed I had nothing," she said quietly. "And now you have everything," he replied. She shook her head. "No," she said firmly. "Not everything." Daniel raised an eyebrow slightly. "I lost time," she added. "I lost myself." Her voice didn't break this time. It was steady, stronger. And that was when Daniel saw it clearly. The woman she was becoming. Not a victim, a survivor. "You can rebuild that," he said. Amara looked at him, a faint smile forming. "I think I already am." And she was. She began making decisions, not out of fear, but choice. She arranged for a portion of the wealth to be used to support women in situations like hers, those trapped, silenced, forgotten. She enrolled Lila in a good school, watching her daughter slowly transform from a frightened child into one full of curiosity and joy. And for herself, she started rediscovering who she was before the pain. It wasn't easy. Some nights the memories returned, the shouting, the coldness, the helplessness. But they no longer controlled her. They reminded her of how far she had come. One evening, as the sun set in soft, golden hues, Amara stood on the balcony, feeling the gentle breeze against her skin. Daniel joined her quietly. "You've changed everything," he said. Amara shook her head slightly. "No," she replied. "I just stopped allowing it to break me." There was a pause. Then she added, her voice softer now. "Thank you for that night." Daniel looked at her, something unreadable in his eyes. "That night," he said slowly, "might have changed more than you realize." Amara frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" But Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he looked out into the distance, his expression thoughtful. And once again, it felt like there was still something he wasn't telling her. It was a quiet afternoon when the past finally came knocking. Amara was in the living room with Lila, helping her arrange colorful drawings across the table, when a staff member approached hesitantly. "Ma'am, there's someone at the gate asking to see you." Amara didn't think much of it at first. "Who is it?" she asked calmly. The hesitation in the woman's voice was enough to shift the air. "He didn't give a name, but he said you would recognize him." Amara's fingers froze mid-motion. A cold feeling crept up her spine. She already knew. Slowly, she stood up. "Take Lila upstairs," she said gently. "But Mummy—" "It's okay," Amara reassured her with a small smile. "I'll be right back." She waited until her daughter disappeared before stepping outside. Each step toward the gate felt heavier than the last. And then she saw him. He looked different. Gone was the polished man who once carried himself with arrogance. His clothes were worn, his posture slumped, his face hollow, like life had drained something essential from him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence stretched. "I didn't think you'd actually come," Amara said finally, her voice calm but distant. "I didn't think I had a choice," he replied. His voice, once commanding, now carried a tremor. Amara studied him. This was the man who had thrown her into the rain, the man she had once feared. And yet now, there was nothing intimidating about him, only regret. "I'm sorry," he said suddenly. The words came out rushed, desperate. "I made a mistake. A terrible mistake." Amara didn't react. "You lost everything," she said simply. "Yes," he admitted. "Everything. And now you remember me." Her words were sharp but not loud. They didn't need to be. He lowered his gaze. "I was blind," he said. "I didn't see what I had until it was gone." Amara let out a quiet breath. "I begged you to see me," she said. "For years." He flinched. "I know." "No," she corrected gently. "You don't." There was a difference. He stepped closer to the gate, gripping the metal bars slightly. "Please," he said. "Just give me another chance. For our family. For Lila." At the sound of her daughter's name, something flickered in Amara's eyes. But it wasn't weakness. It was clarity. "You didn't think about Lila when you threw us out," she said. His silence was answer enough. "I've changed," he insisted. "I swear I have." Amara shook her head slowly. "Change doesn't begin when you lose everything," she said. "It begins when you still have something and choose to do better." He had no response. Tears filled his eyes. I have nowhere to go, he admitted quietly. For a brief moment, Amara felt it. A trace of the old pain, the old attachment. But it passed, because she remembered the rain, the fear, her daughter's trembling voice, and the laughter behind the door. I hope you find your way, she said softly. His head snapped up. But it won't be with me. The finality in her voice shattered whatever hope he had left. Amara. Goodbye. She turned without hesitation and walked away. Behind her, he called her name again. But she didn't stop, didn't turn, didn't look back. Because some doors, once closed, should never be opened again. The gate closed behind her with a quiet finality. This time it didn't echo with loss. It echoed with freedom. Amara walked back into the house, her steps steady, her heart surprisingly calm. There were no tears waiting for her, no doubts creeping in. Just a quiet understanding that something long broken had finally been laid to rest. Lila ran toward her the moment she stepped inside. "Mummy!" she called, wrapping her small arms tightly around her waist. "Is everything okay?" Amara knelt down, brushing a hand gently over her daughter's hair. "Yes," she said softly. "Everything is finally okay." And for the first time, she truly meant it. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Life didn't just move forward, it transformed. Amara fully stepped into the life that had once been hidden from her. Not as someone overwhelmed by wealth, but as someone grounded by experience. She made careful, intentional decisions, ensuring that everything she now owned had purpose. The foundation she started began to grow, helping women rebuild their lives after abuse. It became more than a project. It became her voice, her healing, her way of turning pain into something meaningful. Lila flourished. The fear that once lingered in her eyes faded, replaced by laughter, curiosity, and dreams. She made friends, loved school, and most importantly, felt safe. And Amara? She found herself again. Not the woman she used to be, but someone stronger. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber, Amara stood in the garden, watching Lila play. Daniel joined her, as he often did, quietly, without announcement. "You look at peace," he said. Amara smiled faintly. "I am." There was a pause before she turned to him. "You never told me," she said, "what you meant that night, when you said everything might have changed more than I realize." Daniel exhaled slowly, as if deciding something. Then he reached into his pocket and handed her a folded document. Amara frowned slightly as she opened it. Her eyes widened as she read. It was an old legal record. A name. Her name. But not from her marriage. From before. "I don't understand," she said, looking up. Daniel's voice was calm. "You weren't just used," he said. "You were hidden." Her heart began to race. "What do you mean?" Daniel met her gaze. "Years ago, your family owned everything your husband claimed to build," he revealed. "After they passed, legal control was meant to transfer to you." Amara's breath caught. "But you disappeared from those records," he continued. "Someone made sure you never knew." The world seemed to shift beneath her feet. "My husband," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "He didn't just marry you," he said. "He found you." Silence fell heavily between them. Everything suddenly made sense. The control, the secrecy, the way her life had been carefully shaped without her knowing. Amara closed the document slowly, her hands no longer trembling. This time, the truth didn't break her. It freed her. She looked out at her daughter, then back at Daniel. Then I guess, she said quietly, a small but powerful smile forming. It's finally my life to live. And this time, no one would take it away again. The moral of the story is, your lowest moments don't define you. Your courage to rise does. True strength isn't staying where you're hurt. It's choosing to walk away, reclaim your life, and never let anyone diminish your worth. Amara's story shows that pain and betrayal can become the turning point for transformation. Being thrown into the rain was not the end. It was the moment that revealed her resilience, self-worth, and hidden strength. Life may humiliate or betray you, but karma and integrity always find a way to restore balance. This teaches viewers that walking away from toxic relationships and claiming your dignity is not weakness, it's empowerment. The end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more powerful stories and emotional drama that teaches life-changing lessons. Tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new story. Thank you.